Hey everyone, how you doing? This is DJ Sanakori. Hope everyone's well. Friday night, 9:30 Eastern Standard Time. I'm gonna put on my microphone. If you guys can hear me, give me a thumbs up. Whoever can hear me out there. Just gonna put on my notes. Hold on, I should put on my notes. I'm gonna get my notes. Hold on a second. Oh yeah, where's my pen? Hey everyone, how you doing? This is DJ Sanakori. I'd like to thank everyone for tuning in and downloading this show in the future. Thank you all. There's a couple of things I want to say today, and I'm going to give a little history lesson too. If you guys are interested, I know some people have requested kind of history lessons and stuff for the Taino times, Taino history. Remember, we go back 7,000 years in the Caribbean. There's a lot of history. A lot of these museums in the Caribbean and throughout the world, especially the French, they have tons of our sacred objects, our ceremonial tools, so on. So I've been researching a lot, and in future shows, I want to do some videos and trying to bring that circle alive, that sacred circle. So I know there's a lot of sadness in our country. At least 49% of the people, I think it's 49% of the population voted for Kamala Harris. And I believe it was 51 voted for Trump. And this has caused a lot of rift. Me as a social worker, I visit a lot of families, and I think 100% of my families were worried about the new immigration laws that are going to come. So they asked me a lot of questions. As a social worker, as much as it kills me, I have to look at politics. I have to read up so I can prepare to answer questions. And I can prepare the people, socially, what's expected. So there's a lot of uncertainty, even though Trump lied many times about he doesn't know anything about Project 2025. Now after the election, they're saying that that's going to be the agenda, Project 2025. Now, I skimmed through the whole project. It's over 600 pages. The Democratic Convention kind of hinted to it, and so it caught my curiosity. So I started, reading up on the project, and it's very, very conservative, extremely conservative, and a lot of communities will be affected. A lot of communities. There were over 93 promises made during the campaign, and one of the promises that was made, that many people voted for Trump for this promise, is that undocumented immigrants will be deported. Now this happens every year. But the twist here with the Project 2025 is that children of immigrants, now remember, if you're born in America, you are an American. But this is going to change if he implements this executive order in which American children or American citizens of parents who are undocumented, they will all be deported. So there's going to be Americans as well that 99.9 are not going to be a white American or European. They're going to be deported. So that's gonna be crazy. That's gonna cause a lot of lawsuits. If the courts are still around, I don't know. There's a lot of uncertainty. We just don't know. So many lies and so many misinformation was spread that personally I don't know what they're gonna implement. If they implement it all, it's gonna be a struggle, especially for the working class, people of color. It's gonna be a tremendous struggle. And part of the project is also if you're a protester and you protest against the government, um, you will be arrested. So it seems like freedom of speech and freedom of assembly will be out the window. And not only will you be arrested, but most likely, if you go to a really strong rally or a protest with thousands of people, the military will be used, the U.S. military. And that's unheard of. We have a National Guard that's there to protect the people during time of emergencies, natural disasters, and even war, but not to use your army or military against your own citizens. Now, in Puerto Rico, this did happen. Okay, during the Revolution of Independence in Puerto Rico, Jayuya, which is a town in Puerto Rico, Jayuya was bombed by U.S. military. You're not going to read that. You're not going to hear it in schools. But yes, the military has done this before. So there's a precedent for it in Puerto Rico. I had the privilege enough to speak to some elders in Puerto Rico that lived through that. And when they went to school, um, when they had suspicion this will happen during their protesting, they were told they have to go to the river, meet your parents by the river. And that's what happened. So it's very important. I think one of the things that I pride myself in is that you try to do as much research as possible, learn the history, so we don't repeat it. I used to be a social studies teacher back in the day in a Catholic school in East Harlem. And the students used to tell me this is boring. Why are we studying about the French, the English, Germany? Why are we studying about this stuff? Civil War. And I always used to tell them we have to learn the past so we don't repeat the mistakes of the past. So very important. When you look at the Caribbean, there's a lot of history. So for a lot of people of color, I know they're very upset. Many people of color who are first generation or second generation here to America but are U.S. citizens, for many, it's very difficult for them to show um, patriotic spirit, being American. And one of the reasons why, many reasons, but one of the super reasons, hey, especially here in America, this is stolen land. At one point, from Canada down to South America, all these lands, 25 million dialects, indigenous dialects, 25. Here in the U.S., we have over 537 reservations for indigenous peoples here in America. 99.9% of those indigenous tribes are not living in their tribal land. They're not living in their historical land. They were relocated. And that also applies to Borinquen. So we need to know our history. We really do. It's very important so we don't repeat it. So I can understand how if you refer to yourself as identify as indigenous or Boricua or Caribbean, we have a deep history rooted in 1492. And then all of a sudden you're American, and now there's a history here of the American Indian Wars. You have a history like that book on War on Puerto Ricans, how the U.S. government has not been friendly to Native people. They have not been friendly to Boricuas, Puerto Ricans. They haven't been friendly to the Caribbean islands. America has been deep in there. Tahiti, Dominican Republic, Cuba, Puerto Rico, U.S. history. These world powers, it's all about maintaining the power, right? Maintain your power. As spiritual people, when we say maintain your powers, is stay rooted, stay humble, and open yourself up so you can receive the power, so you can give it away to heal others. But in a capitalistic society or uh, republic, it's all about keeping the country alive and well through certain structures. Here in America, U.S., it's a class structure. So you got the lower class, middle class, upper class, then you got your millionaires, billionaires, and so on. So we live in a society, if you're American, what class are you part of? And then you have people like in Puerto Rico, who's a U.S. territory. You also have Guam, Samoa. So you have the influence of U.S. government. So when you look at the history, it's not nice for people of color. So this is the problem. I'm American, but yet I inherit this history, and that can be very difficult. Personally, for me, I'm in two worlds because I live in an American world where I try to, I punch in, I punch out, I try to be the model citizen. But then there's this looming history behind all of this. In the 1990s, I first got a taste of activism in the native world through the Navajo people here in New York City who were working to they accused the United States of human rights violations against the Dene people, the traditional people of the Navajo, Arizona, called it Black Mesa. And these were elders who lived on the land for thousands of years, and they will make these rugs. And I remember learning a lot about these people, and many of us were able to go because of my job and schooling. I couldn't go personally to meet the Navajo elders, the Dene in Arizona, Black Mesa. But we heard reports. See, back then the internet wasn't like what it is now, and we rely on journals, we rely on the press, especially the liberal press, and also first-hand knowledge. There was no cell phone, man. There were walkie-talkies. And the U.S. Department of Interior was led by John McCain of Arizona, Senator Arizona. And I know in recent elections, he went against Obama, and they keep mentioning his name during the Democratic Party, like, if he was alive, he wouldn't back up Trump, whatever. But he cut off the electricity of the Dene elders. They even killed the lambs or the sheep that were used to make the rugs. They put a lot of pressure on these elders to leave, to relocate. In the 1970s, that's when it started, and a lot of these Navajos started getting cancer and all these crazy diseases because where they relocated them was an area in Arizona that had uranium spill byproducts. So you had a lot of mutant baby mutations and stuff like that. And we were learning all this. I'm like, what? So I remember I had the privilege of going to the United Nations. Hey D, what's up, bro? Saludo también. So I went to the UN. I think this was back in 1996. And I was, they allowed the public to come into this public hearing. It was Dene Navajo Nation versus the United States of America. Human rights violations. And this is when they started talking about the water being cut off and the electricity and the elders being bullied, the animals being killed. John McCain, Senator, spearheading all this. So this is the first time I was experiencing all this, like, whoa, this is crazy stuff. It was making me angry. So years later, you hear John McCain's name come up as a hero and so on. The reason I mention that, I'm not trying to demean his name or his memory. It's not good. It's not a Taino value. But here in the U.S., it's very hard for people of color. It's very hard for indigenous people. They're killing their dogs. That's right. Okay. So it's very hard for us to be proud, So it's going to be a lot of changes coming up. I know in Puerto Rico, the legacy of the Borinqueneers since the Revolutionary War up until the Korean War, operation, in Iraq and stuff, the Puerto Rican people have been involved in these wars. Okay, so there's a long legacy, and I know indigenous peoples, ethnicity-wise, they're the number one ethnic group that volunteer to join the military, which echoes the old warrior societies. And the bottom line for them, and they'll tell you this, is that they're defending Turtle Island. They're defending their families. So it's hard to judge, as people of color. We can judge one another, our loyalties, and so on. But there's a lot of gray, a lot of colors in between the black and white. Um, Now that I mentioned that, the black and white, a lot of indigenous peoples, like the Taino, our ancestors, had this duality: destruction, construction. When there was destruction, there was time to rebuild. When there was life, there was death. But I think the key to all of this, to making sense of the world right now, is that we have to maintain balance. We have to maintain a rhythm, because at the end of the day, we're human beings that need one another. And with all this technology and all these brilliant people in the world, we still haven't figured out how we can share our resources. And that's the thing that kills me. See, in a native way, everything is shared, right? Traditionally. And it's the chief that makes sure everyone's fed and everyone's taken care of, and that the politics is fair, you know? And this is what's missing. The U.S. Constitution was rooted in indigenous values, from the nations here in the north of New York, the Iroquois Confederacy. So it's rooted right there, and now it's being told that it might be destroyed. The U.S. or it's going to be modified, where now once again we may have to fight for our civil rights. So personally, for me, I do like to share that, I do recognize my American citizenship, but I also recognize the ambiguity of the history that I represent. Wherever I go with my passport, it says American. So for a lot of us, being American is quite difficult. And especially there's a lot of other Americans who tell us we're not American because the color of our skin, the way we look, and so on. And I know there's a lot of Hispanics that voted for Donald Trump. 54%, I think they said. I think it was 54% men and 51% women. And the statistics are changing. So, hey, Anani, what's up? Very well said. So, I remember a story when my son was 14 years old. I think he was 13 or 14. If you're watching, correct me. What age were you? We were at an airport. I forget where. I forget what trip we were taking. Maybe it was to Puerto Rico. I don't remember. Or was it a bus station? I don't remember. When you go to this bus station, I think it was Grand Central. We went to one of the stores where there's a lot of magazines and books. And then I remember my son coming to me, and he says, "Dad, someone's following me." He's like, "What do you mean?" He's like, "Yeah, I think someone's stalking me. I'm scared." Well, I don't think he said scared, and I'm nervous. I said, "All right, show me who it is." So when he showed me, he was one of the store clerks or managers. Then he looked surprised when I saw him. And then in front of the clerk, I said, "Oh, Deminon, I believe he thinks you're stealing." And he's like, "What? I'm just looking at the books." He says, "Yeah, but he thinks you're stealing, And for some reason, you may have that look. Part of it is maybe it's just skin color. And I'm saying this in front of the man, and I guess he was embarrassed and he walked away. And I remember my son being very angry. I think it was the first time in his life that he confronted this judgmental, racist kind of, or prejudice. I don't want to say racist because the man was also a person of color. So I want to say it was more like prejudice. He profiled my son. So I remember my son had a hard time trying to grasp this. Like, whoa, just because I look a certain way, I'm being profiled? And I think my son had an afro at the time, so he stood out. And I said, wow, man, I was like, this is like the first time he met this reality that the way you look says a lot, um, of how people are gonna treat you. So people of color, we've been struggling with this. I remember one day I called in a radio station, WFAN, and they were talking about who are the best players of all time in baseball. And I was saying you have to break it up into two eras. During the Afro Negro leagues and after the color barrier when Jackie Robinson came into the league. And man, they got angry at me and said, "Oh, that's too hard. We can't do that, man." They were so frustrated at me. And these supposed to be expert sportscasters. And there it is. They just doesn't matter. No, we got black players now. We got Latino players. Doesn't matter. No. I said, no, we gotta. If you're gonna talk all time, you gotta separate two eras: the Negro League era, because blacks and Latinos were not allowed to play, and after the color barrier. Thank you, Jackie Robinson. But we still struggle with this. You know, a lot of people are blaming Kamala Harris, Joe Biden, for the loss. Like I said, there's a lot of gray. It's not black and white. I can easily say, hey, it's about racism. Yeah, a lot of it was about racism. But also the ideals that we look in a leader. So for a lot of people, being a rapist didn't matter. Being a traitor, January 6th, didn't matter. What else? Being a 34 felon. You know, in American society, it's brutal for felons to get jobs and housing. It's brutal, man. I believe it's the worst situation a U.S. citizen can be in if you have a felony charge and you do time. And that's why I hate using, I don't know, I won't get into that, but sometimes it's hard to even get a job at McDonald's, man. And you always got to check off, felon and this and that. Taking a chance. Because if you say no, they're going to do a background check on you. And yet, we have an elect president who has 34 felony charges. So it's insane. Double standard, right? For the working class, for the poor, and the elitists who can get all these lawyers and can bamboozle the people, con artists, right? To donate constantly, and that's what's been going on for the last 9 years. So it exposed the system, the judicial system. You can really push the courts to the limit, and it can take years through appeals and so on. And as president, you can put judges in the Supreme Court, in the federal, the appellate courts, and this is what Trump did in his first term. It's like it was a grand plan. Now I just saw today on YouTube one of the political analysts was saying that from now until January 20th, Biden has to appoint people and have to appoint judges in the federal, appellate, so on. And it was a statistic that surprised me. Right now, the judges that he appointed, 66% are people of color. When Trump was president, before he left, it was 13% were people of color. So when I look at these statistics, I say, yeah, there is a difference between the Democrats and the Republicans. Because when your son, when your dad is processed in the judicial system, they get arrested, whatever, whoever is that judge, okay, if that judge is an extremist Republican, extremist conservative, be careful. Be careful. So I continue to pray that justice will one day come to us one day, and that right now that these judges that be appointed are going to be fair judges and not just look white American, but have diversity, They were saying today, some lawyers, that this might be our last shot, of of maintaining democracies is that when people start suing Trump, or they start suing the different laws in the state level and federal level, that these judges will, who are of diversity, can rule fairly. It's gonna be crazy, man. It's not gonna be easy. We lost the election for many. For many, they won the election, and there's a lot of divide, and a lot of it deals with the racism. It deals with fear. It deals with fear of diversity. There's 59 or 50, it's 57% of the American population is of Euro ancestry. So they're the majority, and this is why we're called a minority, because we are the minority. You know, believe it or not, the highest paid Americans citizens are of both Far East and Near East. Believe it or not, it's not the white Americans. So there's that level of classism. You know, who has the money power? Stock market shot up. Billionaires won so much money the day after the election during the stock market. Um, I thought it was going to be the opposite, but there's definitely people who have this power, the billionaires, super billionaires. Not surprising that the Amazon president supported Trump. You know, Elon Musk, the richest man in the world, who's not wasn't born in America, is going to be part of the American government related to business. Those tax cuts are going to be excellent for them. So, we as Taino, we have this long history. In 1492, we had this amazing structure that even the historians say they were more. It was more advanced than any indigenous peoples they at the time. You know, because our system was very tight. Bartolome Malacasas, who was a priest and a defender of the Taino, even he couldn't understand the political system. It was really complicated. It was very structured. And as Dr. Yare Melendez used to say in Aguaque to the kids, los Tainos eran muy organizados. The Taino were very organized. She would say that to the children when they were unruly, and immediately they'll zap back into that discipline, you know? It's like, hey, our ancestors were supremely disciplined and organized. And it was true. We had structure after structure after structure. And then 1492, Española, and so on, to Borinquen, 1493. That structure was destroyed little by little. It was destroyed. It was decimated. But it was not extinct. It did not become extinct. Because when you went to the Ibero cultures, right, generations later, they had a lot of organization. Okay? They had a lot of structure. And I won't get into that, but maybe one day we can talk about Ibero society, how structured it was. Um, but we have history of rulers coming into Borinquen and the Caribbean. You guys remember the Queen of Spain, Isabella I, the Queen of Castile and Leon, and also of Aragon in 1479? Um, yeah, these are the rulers that came to the islands. Um, what did we know about these rulers and their structure? We had the caciques, we had the bejiques, we had the Nitaino council. You know, everyone, the Baharis, and so on. So, but guess what? Once the caciques, Casquillascos were destroyed, the conditioning began, the social conditioning. And that led to, once our ancestors fully knew what was the deal, many of the leaders rebel. And I won't get into the rebellions now, but I promise you, these rebellions were tough. And so the indigenous peoples, you know, we would shove Catholicism Spanish norms was shoved into us. That's trauma, man. No longer we're listening to our caciques and mexiques. Now we have to listen to this Isabela and Ferdinand the Second of Aragon and all these laws and all these persecutions of people who rebel against it. It's tough, man. It's tough. It's in our DNA. We know what ruling class means. And it's difficult for us to follow politics. It's difficult for us to follow leaders and campaign for them because of our history. It's in our DNA, man. We can smell it a mile away. We can smell the fakeness of it. It's in our DNA, you know. It's interesting when Christopher Columbus, the first time he went back to Spain, he presented some Taino people to Queen Isabella. And according to history, the queen was not happy. And she told Columbus, I told you not to treat them like slaves. They're not slaves. And then she passed the law that that Taino will no longer be slaves. I look like Ernie? Ernie who? From Sesame Street? um, who Ernie? Sugandi. Oh man, from Sesame Street? Damn, do I look like Ernie? Word up. You know, what's up? Maybe it's the hat. Oh, what's up? Suck on these nuts. Oh, suck on these nuts. All right, are you a MAGA dude? You're MAGA, right? I know it. Or you're just a trickster. Hey, we got some tricksters here. I love tricksters, man. Suck on. All right, man, that's cool. Oh man, what's up, Brujo? Salud, hermano, ¿cómo está? Man, I'm going into some politics here, man. But I'm trying to rope it into the politics of our ancestors, man. We can sniff it away. It's interesting. 1873, slavery was abolished in Puerto Rico. Hola, tengo tres piernas. Oh, damn. Eddie, tiene tres piernas. You got to go into the circus there. Oh, thank you, man. Thanks for the respect. We got some tricksters on here. Está bien. The tricksters, right? They keep us smiling. They keep us happy. No, but 3 legs is good, man. That's like the triad, man. Yeah, man. So it's kind of cool that Isabela, la reina, the Queen Isabela, dos cabezas. That's cool, man. I like to see that in the drawing. Hey, if you can draw it, send it to me at TainoFunHouse@gmail.com. I'll post it up, man. If you can draw it or illustrate it, I'll post it up, man. I swear. No nudity, though, right? What was I gonna say? Oh yeah, so Queen Isabella, she passed this law that the Taino were not slaves, and guess what? Did the Spanish tell them? No way, man. They kept on with the conditioning process. Test me, you don't. Trust me, laugh out loud. Oh, trust me. All right, cool, man. So it's in our DNA, man. We know what this is all about. What's up, my dude? What's up, man? Eddie. So, one of the most, I promise in future shows, I'm going to talk about these rebellions, man. They were bloody. But it's in our blood, man. We can smell rulers a mile away. In 1504, man, the war Higüey, I mentioned that many times. It was brutal. And I remember reading that Bartolomé de las Casas, he wrote a lot of letters to the Pope at the time saying, it's brutal. It's horrible what's happening here. And unfortunately, in 1514, he told the Queen, hey, I got an idea. Let's bring African slaves here to ease the burden on the Taino. Before he died, he regretted that, of course. And that began the transatlantic slave trade in the Caribbean. 1518 through 19, the island suffered a smallpox epidemic. Almost wiped out all our people. But thank God they found the cure, and we're still alive, right? Uh, yeah. So there's a lot of history. We've been through a lot. It's in our DNA, and it doesn't surprise me. A lot of our people don't trust government. They don't trust leaders. They don't trust politicians, and that's perfectly all right, man. Because look at our history. We're probably listening to our DNA. But here's the thing: there's a lot of people in government right now. The Alexandria Ocasios, um, Jasmine Crockett, African American. These are women who are educated and have powerful positions. Um, there is a movement of more people of color going into government to push this ideal of we the people, right? When this Constitution was created, the Republic, it was based on these people had slaves, man. George Washington was noted of destroying so many villages as they marched north. So it's in our DNA, man. It's hard for us to say USA, USA. Very difficult for us to say USA, USA with a smile on our face. So I see it, man. Look, I know it's funny when I went to vote, the workers, they gave me this, I voted, all right. And then when I left, they gave me another one. Where's the other one? Hold on, I had two. Trust me, I had two of these. I don't know where the other one went. But there was kind of a sadness. I felt it. I don't know if you guys felt it. There was an energy. It was a weird energy around this election, like unsurety and anxiety and so on. And then boom, the bomb went off. I've noticed that even today, as a social worker, I know a lot of families. I've been getting a lot of calls, and I've also got word that a lot of Latinos have been leaving the country who are undocumented because they don't want to get arrested. They want to go in dignity. So it's already starting. And then there's this executive order Trump wants to pass that if your parents are undocumented but you're American, you're also going to be deported. So it's going to be Americans are going to be deported because of the color of their skin and their heritage. And there's a lot of families, I know them, I met them, man. I as a social worker, I have so many undocumented people who work throughout their life, pay their taxes. You get your Social Security card, you can work after some amount of years, and then you can pay your taxes. And many of these immigrants, built homes back in their country. Many of them were asylum seekers, and they received their citizenship or their permanent green cards. Now, under Project 2025, those applications are going to be wiped out. So, that's crazy, man. That's crazy. It's going to be a lot of unsure. There's a lot of people are really nervous right now. I know a lot of experts are saying the economy is probably going to tank eventually because U.S. has been so dependent on slave wage of immigrants, of undocumented people, and also these greedy corporations or these greedy owners of businesses. They want that slave. What, they get paid $3 an hour under the table, work many hours. Well, that's gonna stop if this is true. So now our system of government is gonna be a magic shift. I mean, not magic, a super shift. So I just pray, man, that fairness and justice returns to this country. But it's a country of stolen lands, man. I don't know if you knew, but when the American citizens were heading west during the Great Expansion, the U.S. government would pay $200 a head for any Native American who resisted. If you kill them, bring back the head, and you will get $200. This is during the 1800s, so $200 was a lot of money back then. Um, and the president was Abraham Lincoln. When the natives rebel, 38 plus 2 were captured and hung. Al Qaeda, Minnesota, the homelands of the Lakotas. Yeah. Um, this is our history. And yet, for many immigrants, and I know a lot of them, they have beautiful homes back home. When they retire, they have the Social Security check and they go back home and they enjoy the last of their days. But many of them go back home sick, tired, because they work so hard. You know, they always say that people in the islands, they always say when people come back after 20, 25 years, they look older. They look really old and gatao, because of the work they've done. You've come a long way from that point. We've come a long way from that point, yeah. But now, who knows what's gonna happen, bro? Um, a lot of uncertainty. So, if we really believe in this, what we call America experiment or freedom of rights, civil rights, and so on, that Abraham Lincoln fought so hard and got killed, the fight continues. I guess the fight continues. And what I find amazing is people of color are standing up, especially this past election, trying to fight for these values, American values, right, of freedom and so on. It's the people of color. And it's the far right extremists who are bringing it down. I remember when the American Indian movement in the 70s, they were saying that, boom, they're going to destroy America. They're going to destroy the government. The Black Panthers, when they came with their guns into the courts, right? In California, it was legal to carry your guns. And when they did it, they changed the law. So, and they were saying they're going to take down the government. When the Puerto Ricans, radical fighters, went to Washington to kill the president, not once but twice, boom, they're going to destroy the government. But yet, we've been there since the Civil War defending democracy. The Puerto Rican people. Personally, with my activist work through the years, I understand that it's not easy and it's not fair sometimes what's going on. And there is fear, especially in the judicial system. There is fear for us. I remember growing up seeing the police brutalize people on the streets. Both criminals and innocent. So, to this day, when I look up to the police, I look down. I try not to look them in the eye. I also remember as a teenager seeing cops save my life when I was jumped. My uncle and I were being jumped. Bricks were thrown at us, and I saw a lot of the brutality there too. But it's not easy, It's not easy. It's difficult. We're human beings, man. We're difficult. In past shows, I discuss about the circle. Human beings, we have 5 aspects what makes a human being. The first one is the physical, mental, spiritual, and emotional. And smack in the middle of the medicine wheel is the will. So we have the will to do what we want. It could be a criminal act or it could be a compassionate act. It's your choice. And this is why in societies there was structure to keep the balance between stealing or giving. So right now in America, there seems to be, if you're super rich, you can afford the best lawyers. If not, it's going to be very difficult. Credit score versus salary. It's very difficult for people now to get apartments if their credit score is low. They could be making a lot of money, But if that credit score is low, that means you're not playing the game. You haven't played the game. We can't trust you. Yeah, you're a good person. Yeah, you're making good money. We trust you on that. But we can't trust you're going to pay me. So again, society, it's all about that money, man. Go out and vote. Protect the investment. So there's a lot of pain. There's a lot of hey, I just noticed something. There's a circle. In the middle of the circle is I voted. It's like a dedication to the system. I do want to add one thing. I was very upset when I heard President Biden, say that he's going to agree to a peaceful um, transition. They're going to give Trump an office. His staff, Biden's staff, and his staff, they're going to discuss this transition. And I keep hearing, wow, man, that's civility, and he's being true. He's a gentleman. He's an American. He's following the Constitution, whatever. But my Taino blood, my DNA tells me that's bullshit. All these years you're telling me that he's a threat to society, and now you're helping him, and that's cool. Sounds like you guys are going to disappear, and then it's up to us to fend for ourselves. See, that's the Taino in me. Like, yeah, we heard this story before. But we voted in 2024. As a Behike, I always want justice. Not just in my own life. Like when I make a mistake or I commit pain in others, I have to be the first to say, damn, sorry. And try to make amends, And that's our calling in all human beings, man. I'm sorry, I messed up. Let's see how we can do better. And then we become better as a people, as a family, as a community. What kept the Taino people alive is we kept together. We stuck together. When Cacique Omacao from Borinquen, he led a war party that the archaeologists found the area where they fought. They didn't find one Indian bone. It was all Spaniards with their swords and shields and so on that were buried. And what did Omacao do? He took his people, and you go to Omacao to that burial site. It's by his bate. You have to look west, and you can see the Yunque. It's a 4-day walk. And he took his people 4 days to the Yunque, and they went up that mountain, never to be seen again. But eventually they came down that mountain, right? You can see the descendants in Luquillo, the Jibaros up in those mountains, the way they live and the way they treat each other. Of course, we can't forget colonization. Sometimes we don't treat each other nicely. That's that conditioning, right? I like to say colonization is that whole conditioning process. And when we don't fall in line, the people will tell us. They're going to scold us. That's why we need those tricksters to wake us up, man. So I just want to leave that, whatever you do, don't abandon yourself, because you're a sacred being. You're a semi. Okay? And nothing can take you out. But let's do it together. Imagine 2 semis, 3 semis, 4 semis banding together. There's 13 sacred semis, and we're number 13. We're right in the middle. Okay? We're co-creators, man. Same thing with the animals. We're co-creators, man. We came from them. Just look at their eyes. Look at a fisheye, right? It looks just like us. So here's the thing. We gotta work together. We have the intellect, the spirit to help one another. Don't lose hope. My brothers and sisters out there, don't lose hope. Stay rooted in who you are as a semi, as a sacred being. Call out to your ancestors. Especially those ancestors that were slaves, man. Who were raped and murdered. Call upon those ancestors. They will help you. They will definitely help you. Burn that incense. Burn the tobacco. You know? Give back. A lot will be taken from us, but don't forget to give. Okay? Don't imitate the oppressor. The oppressor takes. We give. That's the difference. So if times are going to be hard, we have to help our neighbor. Bartolome de la Casa is when he wrote the Pope. One of the things he told the Pope back then was, I never seen more of a better Christian than these Taino people, because it was all about giving. It's about giving. So remember the circle, the four directions, the dot in the middle. This is who we are, man. We're in the center right now. You're in your center of reality. What are you gonna do to make things better? What are you gonna do in the middle of oppression? You might be in a lower class. You might be in the middle class. You might be even on the upper middle class, upper class. Here's the thing: indigenous thought, indigenous worldview. We are one. Relatives. Let's help each other. Okay. When Enriquillo went to when he went to the Spanish court, he complained that his wife was raped by the slave master. And the judge said, ha ha, why did you come here? I just told you. And the judge said, you're an Indian, you're an indio. Tú no tienes derechos. You don't have rights. And what did Enriquillo do? He went back to the people and he said, guess what? The courts are not on our side. We have no rights. And I'm just paraphrasing here. The people say, hey, your aunt was Ana Caona, the great cacica. Your father-in-law was Caunabo. You come from the bloodline. And guess what? He led the rebellion. He never surrendered. And the Spanish approached him and said, we give up. Let's sign a peace treaty. So they gave him land. They gave him protection, his community. They stuck together. So look at our ancestors. Look at their history. See what they did. You know? It was easy for the caciques to get some words and just disappear and leave the people behind. But they didn't. They brought the people behind. With them. So let's follow their model as Taino. Let's work together. If you have friends or family that are going to be deported, try your best to friend them. Keep in touch with them. We have social media, WhatsApp. It's going to be difficult times coming up. This project 2025 is going to remind us of the Spanish when they came to the Caribbean. They stripped us. When they mined for the gold, right? Drilling is going to begin like crazy, like never before. Those environmental laws are going to be pushed back, rolled back. Our mother's going to hurt like never before, which means those polar caps are going to be melting stronger than ever. They're saying in 200 years, the glacier is going to melt. 10 feet of increase of the seabeds, of the sea levels. The way it looks, it might come faster, quicker. So yeah, man, there's a circle, and I voted 2025. Hey, let's do some numerology here. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8. That's what it comes out to. 4 directions times 2 is 8. It's the 8 directions. So let's stay rooted in our tradition. We are Taino. I'm an American, but my identity is Taino. Maybe your identity is Cree, Lakota, Taino, Kalinago. Whatever it is, we're human beings, man. We're human beings. So let's keep the fight going. do your best to not stay alone in the depression. Look for help. Okay? Look for help. I'll be tuning in at least once a week from now on, up until the inauguration and so on. Once a week, and I want to offer my services as a psychotherapist in the state of New York to offer advice, listening ear um, on Zoom. I'm gonna put the Zoom link once a week. I want to check in with everyone. Doesn't matter where you're from, who you are. If you need mental health support, you need spiritual support, um, physical support, if you need mental support, if you need to fortify your will to live, I'm not going to do it by myself. I'm going to open up a Zoom session under the Taino Fun House, and let's try to have fun. If people need resources, that'll be a good time to help other people. Maybe you live in Florida, they live in Florida, maybe you guys can help each other, you know. The Taino Fun House wants to be a vehicle of support, okay? It's about having fun in the world. It's not sad. Sadness is natural and it's temporary, you know. I hope. Let's try to keep happiness a permanent emotion in our life, experience. And to get happiness, it's the trial and errors, man. I don't know about you, but I laugh the hardest when I am able to heal from the pain or from failures. People, I want to see you soon, okay? On Tuesday night at 9:30, I'm going to tune in for a mental health check on Tuesday. And then on Fridays, I'll continue this Taino history. I didn't get too much Taino history today, but I did mention Isabella um, about how she tried to stop slavery, but she really didn't enforce it. So the conditioning continued up until the 1920s in Puerto Rico. Slavery was very much active. I remember learning in Canovanas. I learned from an elder. There's a lot of anti-Semitic um, to this day in Canovanas from a lot of the elders. Well, not maybe not this day. This was back in the 90s. And one of the things that I learned was that the landowners are mostly Jewish in the Canovanas area. And to get a job, you had to bring your wife, and then the landowner will have sex with the wife, and you will get the job. That's oral tradition from many of the elders who were in the 90s in Canovanas when my grandmother was living. And I was shocked by that. So it just wasn't the Spanish. It was also different nationalities. And you can see them in our DNA, right? You see our DNA? Oh, man, I got English blood, Scottish blood, whatever. Well, a lot of that was these were landowners. Even though slavery was abolished, to get a job in the farm, you had to bring a woman, a wife, girlfriend, whoever, and they would have sex with them. And this was the norm, man, up until the 1900s, 1920s, 30s, right here in Puerto Rico, right in Puerto Rico. So we know pain. We know rulers as Taino descendants and people who try to be Taino. So please don't quit, man. We got a lot of work to do. We survived 1492. We survived 1511. We survived the 1600s. Man, we're still here. We are still here. They can't take us out. Many of our brothers and sisters from other islands, Mexico, whatever, Central America, a lot of them you're going to see, they're going to be deported. But we got to continue to struggle, okay? So God bless you all. Bo, Watukan, blessings, and Bo Matum. Thank you for coming in. Hey, check it out. I just bought Javier Hernandez's book. He just came out with a book on a language. I know there's a lot of language books out there, but it's easy accessible to his book, Taino Iki. So I'm gonna pass that along. What I learned, I'm gonna pass it. Maybe we could do a Zoom on that, man. We could talk Taino. God bless you all again. Be strong out there. The fight has begun.